Nice to see you again. For those I haven't, my name's Helly. I've been working here for a little over 5.5 years, and my goal today is to just share some experiences I've had, pass on some wisdom, and hopefully instill some good systems that have worked for me. I'm going to give you the story in a second, but I think if I could focus on one thing that allowed me to excel past other people is just following systems and having simple disciplines. And I think those are the two things that most people take for granted and overlook. You think about it, when I started, when anybody that was doing better than me, not as a person, but just professionally, was going to do a workshop, I was never going to miss it. And what we're going to see is over the next 10 minutes is people strolling late. And one of the #1 disciplines you could have is timeliness. Especially if you want something so bad, there's nothing that's going to happen in the outside world that would allow you to be late for anything. And when you come to this career, you come with aspirations of succeeding. No one comes to this business and says, I want to be average. But what allows people to be average is not creating a system, not sticking to it, and not allowing anything to get in their way. You got to remember, the moment you started, you were extremely excited over the potential to do something amazing. There's a lot of people search their whole life to have a platform to excel, and they never find it. You think about it, when I worked a 9-to-5 job, the best I could do was clearly shown. I can't work harder than the 9 hours or the 40 hours a week that I was doing. You just can't do it. You have to work that time, and then you commute and you make no extra money. And you're typically going to do that for 35 plus years. It's a very mundane system. I mean, this opportunity, you can bust your ass for 3 to 5 years and be independently wealthy. And that's what you got to realize. And in between those 3 to 5 years, you're going to have to work your ass off. But the better you have a system, the better you stick to those disciplines, the better you're going to be. So a little bit background of myself. I started in November 2012. I was unemployed at the time, and I wasn't someone that's like, oh, I'm looking for a place to make $1 million. At that point in my life, in terms of the economy, I would have been satisfied with $40,000, $50,000 a year, 100%, as long as I had room for growth. That's just the nature of the economy. You weren't getting jobs you wanted, you weren't getting careers in the field you studied, and you certainly weren't making what you wanted to make. You just had to be grateful to get a job. And so when I came in, and I saw the success that gigs had, obviously, and I saw the success that other people were having, I saw a light and a way to get there. And so my goal today is to share with you how to get that opportunity, how to have that success, and what you need to do to instill it. So #1, we come in, there's going to be things that we're totally in control of and things we're not in control of. And when you face something new, the better you are at controlling the things you can control, the better equipped you're going to be to handle the things you can't. I can never prepare anybody for the stuff we can't control. And the things I'm referring to is whether the client's there, whether they have a bank, whether they're going to reschedule, whether they're going to be interested. There's so many different things that we're not going to be able to control, but the #1 thing we can control is the first thing we get, is our script. All right? And when you get that script, we typically work with people that have never done a career like this, because all you're going to learn is this system. And if you stop and think, this business, American Income's been around, at least this new generation of American Income's been around since 1951, that script has sold nearly billions of ALP. And so within your first week or two, if you try to recreate that, you're competing against great success versus marginal luck. You're never going to beat the script. And so when you get the script, you've got to evaluate yourself, whether it's day 1 or day 1,000, where are you at 10 out of 10 in terms of the script? And if you can't honestly give yourself a 10 out of a 10, you're setting yourself up to be less than average. You think about it, if you're going to be new, and the new person in our agency, within their first 6 months, average person's going to close 1 out of 3. Okay? If you're average, you will close 1 out of 3 in your first 6 months. Well, what do you have to do to be above average? You can't be average at your script knowledge and be average at closing. You're giving yourself a disadvantage. But you think about it, I can't teach someone how to memorize something, but I can teach someone how to apply time and put in effort to know it like the back of their hand. You know, if you stop and think and you calculate how many sentences are in that script, it's about 45 or 46, and the first one's, hi, my name is whatever your name is, and you should know that, okay? Everything else is a desire on your part to master the language in which we're going to speak. The language that we speak in this business is our script. And you can't build a home without a solid foundation. Has anybody ever tried to build their own home here? Or you've seen architects build it? If they don't have a blueprint that makes sense, and engineers have reviewed it, architects have reviewed it, what's going to happen when you try to build a new deck or you add an addition? The foundation crumbles. Like, knowing the script will not make you succeed, but it will certainly allow you to build upon it to do extra and be above average. But what happens is we review the script and we're like, okay, I kind of know it, I'm good enough, I've seen people make sales without it. Yes, you're going to luck out several times in this business. The more you go out, the more likely you're going to find people that don't care about the script and they just want to hand you money for coverage. And that's not what's going to make you successful. It's like when you work or you're coaching a team. There's teams you're going to beat no matter what. You want to make sure you beat them. There's teams that it's 50-50, and the more you win of those, the better the season goes. And then there's games you shouldn't win. And if you win those games, your team's going to do well. It's the same thing in this business. You're going to walk into houses that are just easy sales. You're going to walk into houses that are 50-50, depending on your presentation. And then you're going to walk into houses that no matter how great your presentation is, it doesn't matter. You want to win those 50-50 battles. And when you evaluate yourself, and you should really write this down at this moment, write down on a scale out of 10 out of 10, where do you put your script knowledge in terms of just reciting that script perfectly? If you're not a 10 out of a 10, you have work that you need to take ownership of and become a 10 out of a 10. Because the business is going to require more than a great script knowledge, but you can't get on to the next level if you don't have your foundation tight. Okay? 44 sentences of memorization. If you think about it, there's probably songs that came out within the last month that if they come on the radio, you'll nail every single word. And nailing that word of that song is not going to make you money. Most likely it'll cost you money. But this is a script, this is a language that will create fortunes for you and the next generations when you factor in renewals. But if we can't take ownership of our script knowledge, then we're setting ourselves up for failure. We're setting ourselves up for a system that's not going to create as much success that is owed to you. Does that make sense? Okay? That's one thing you can control. The next thing you can control is objections and rebuttals. Okay? Being great at objections and rebuttals is good, but if you don't have the script, it doesn't matter. So keep it within the order. Your objections and rebuttals are at your fingertips with the YouTube video we have and the script that we have. It's just how much effort you're going to put in mastering them. Again, scale 1 out of 10, how good are you? If you're not a 10 out of a 10 on objections and rebuttals, what are you doing when no one's looking to ensure you get better at it? You know, a lot of us view that when we go to work is when we work. And I've got to give you the reality of this business. This is a 24/7 business. You start this company, and for a tiny bit of an investment of your time and to get the license, you're running your own business. That's a fact. The difference is within 2 to 3 weeks, you're profitable on this business. You can't start a business elsewhere and become profitable within the first month. I mean, think about it. Look at any small business that you encounter today and ask them how long it took them to turn a pure profit. If you're confident enough, they'll tell you the real answer. It doesn't happen in the first year with just overhead and stuff. I mean, you have an office you can work out of that costs you nothing. The Wi-Fi is provided, electricity is provided, leads are provided. A system is provided with a presentation. We hand you a script that's free. And a lot of us aren't taking full advantage of how much money can be made in this. You know, let's stop and look at the weekly leaderboards. There's a woman that wrote $42,000 last week. Last week, one person. She's probably going to make $23,000 for 1 week's worth of work. It's the same script. The difference is, what do you do with the opportunity? How do you view the opportunity? Someone, in this case, she just took that advantage and this opportunity to the next level. Some of us are thinking, if I know this script well enough, I'll be able to write 2,000 ALP. That's not good enough. Because again, think about the things you can control. You can control how much bonus the company pays you. Does everyone understand that? The company's willing to pay you a 15% bonus, meaning if you don't shoot to hit that 15% bonus, you're basically saying, company, I understand you want to pay me more per ALP that I get, I just want to take less. Okay? If I were to have $15 in my right hand or 5 and I say you get to have one hand only, which one do you want? The $15, right? It's simple math. It's the same thing. If you're going to go out and you write a sale today for 1,000 ALP, you're only getting 6% of that in terms of a bonus. What you do the rest of the week determines how much more you can get on that first sale. And the problem is how we think. The problem is how much effort we put on the things we can control in terms of the script, the rebuttals, and then effort. Okay? Effort is the other thing. Before I get into a long story of tips and stuff like that, I've noticed that some people view different opportunities differently. Okay? When I came in, I had experienced a 9 to 5. It was really an 8 to 6. And what you don't realize, when you work a 40-hour week or 60-hour work week, there's nothing you can do from start to finish. And then you talk about being in New Jersey and having to drive north to get to work. I have to add another 2 hours a day just in commute. There was no leisure back then. Opportunity for growth limited. I couldn't exactly see a way to move up in the company, okay? But no matter what was going to happen, there was 2 hours a day for 5 days a week that I was driving. 10 hours every single week were gone from my life sitting in rush hour traffic. There's 52 weeks in a year. You think about how much time you never get back. When I came into this business, I was excited about the potential for money. But the number one commodity that we all have at our fingertips to attain is time. We have the ability to get time back. You know, when I came in, and Evan Holtzauer, who's opening up his own agency in a couple weeks, he was my general manager. I was 27, he was 28. He was making $4,000 to $5,000 a week, which was impressive. But more impressive to me was he went home at 1 o'clock, and he got to be with his fiancée at the time. And you talk about time, and the way you value it is so much. There's so much importance, because if you value it the same way I valued it then, you'll take this opportunity to the next level, because you can get future time to leisure if you work in the current time. The more you work now, the more leisure you will have. When I'm done with this workshop and I do one meeting, 12 o'clock happens, I can do whatever the hell I want for the work I put in 2012, 13, 14. Now there's continued work, but because I worked my tail off back then, it allows me the ability that if I wanted to go to the beach after this, I can go to the beach. If I wanted to do whatever you want to do, I can do it because I have time. And so that's what motivates me. So when it came to starting and people are saying, okay, this is the schedule we work. We book on Mondays for Tuesday, Wednesday appointments. Thursdays we book for Friday, Saturday. Now the weekday appointments, they have a higher closing ratio from 6 p.m. on. They also have a higher ALP per sale from 6 p.m. on. Now a lot of people will stop and say, I'd rather be home at 6 o'clock. I was one of them. I used to be in bed at 8 o'clock and up at like 4:30. That's just how I've always been my whole life. I did not want to be out on a 9 p.m. appointment till 10 p.m. It doesn't make me comfortable. But being comfortable will limit me in the amount of time I can receive in the future. Being uncomfortable will grant me something that other people can't achieve. So when I tell you what the success rate is, just work the success rate. If you're not booking from 6 p.m. to a 9 o'clock appointment, you're setting yourself up to have less success. So when I hear those numbers, and this is what Evan said he was doing, I was booking a 9 o'clock, an 8:30, an 8 o'clock, a 7:30, a 7 o'clock, a 6:30, a 6 o'clock, before I even entertained a 2 o'clock. Because what's going to happen being human is I'm going to try to naturally find a way to beat the system, have success at 2 o'clock, and then say, oh, I've proved you guys wrong, proved you girls wrong, and then go home. And again, this is a place where I can, no matter how well I do at 2 o'clock, I can still do better. I can still get more. The more I put into it, the more I'm going to get out of it. So in terms of effort, don't just stop and say I'm comfortable. You know, a lot of you that I'm starting to work with now, I wanted short-term goals. Because if you have short-term goals, I know we can achieve them within 3 months. As long as they're reasonable. You're not saying, oh, I want to make $1 million in 3 months. I'm going to tell you this isn't the opportunity. But if you're like, I want to save $5,000 in the bank and still pay all my bills, that's doable. We can create a plan for that. If you say, hey, I want to buy the car of my dreams, and I only need to save an extra $4,000, that's doable. But we got to stick to a plan, and we've got to work our asses off, because once you achieve that, you're going to feel good. But how do you get from point A to point B is controlling your effort and understanding throughout point A and point B, there's going to be a lot of speed bumps along the way. There is no shortcut to success. There's going to be stuff that comes down on you. There's going to be people that don't want to set an appointment. There's going to be people that tell you not to do this career. There's going to be people that say, I can't afford it. There's going to be people saying, I have enough coverage. There's going to be so many different roadblocks along the way. And if you think about it, and if you live life with analogies that motivate yourself, when you're driving through a parking lot and it has speed bumps, what do you typically do? Do you turn around and say, oh no, I can't go through this parking lot? Or do you slowly go over them? Okay? But in this, if you mentally compare it to this, a lot of us see a little speed bump and we turn around and we go home and we shut down. A tiny bit of adversity happens along the way, and some of us will mentally crumble. And that's not what it's meant to be. That's why so few people make $1 million in a year, is because so few people are mentally strong enough to step outside that comfort zone. Does that make sense? Okay? So when something goes wrong, the more you anticipate it, the easier it becomes. And the more you value the profitability in this company, the less you care about the problems. You're almost going to laugh about it. Like, oh, flat tire. I knew it. You know? Little things like that, they go a long way. But if you're so motivated by your goal, like if you truthfully set a goal and you're like, I'm going to get this no matter what, nothing will stop you. So how do you find a goal? Okay, in this business, my goal when I started was to move up in management. I wanted that time. What Evan had, I wanted. I wanted the money too, don't get me wrong, but I wanted free time. I wanted to be able to live my life and be financially independent. So from a starting point, from the beginning, I knew I had to write $24,000 in 3 months. Does everyone know this? Okay. Was there anyone here not aspiring to move up in management? Okay. So everyone has the dreams to move up to a general manager and then on, correct? Okay. So you have to know the numbers. Okay. It's $24,000 in a rolling 90-day period. How do you do that? Well, first you start and you figure that there's 12 weeks throughout that. So you got to net at least $2,000 a week. I don't know about you, but I'm not good working to the last minute. I feel better if I load the deck early and then I can cruise later on. If I cruise early on and then I got to work later in the later hours or the later months or weeks, I just panic. I'm not at my best. Okay, pressure is not always the best ally for me. So I know, okay, if I got to hit 24,000, I'm not trying to just do 2,000 a week because that's the average. That's what it tells me. I want to do as much as possible as soon as possible because I could do 24,000 in 1 month and move up now. I don't have to wait 3 months. Okay, so I have to create a plan on how to do that. So what I want to give you is company averages, New Jersey averages, okay? More specifically, Edison averages. So in order to know how to get to 24,000, you want to work backwards. So you begin with the end in mindset, they say. So for 24,000, divide 24,000 by 12. If someone could write this down so we could review, do 24,000 divided by 12, because that's going to be 12 weeks. What's the answer? 2,000, okay? How do you write 2,000 ALP in a week? Well, the average sale price in New Jersey currently is $72 a month, okay? $72 a month. $72 a month times 12 is what, 864? So divide 2,000 by 864. Anybody? You got to deal with exact numbers. 2.31. Okay, that's how many sales a week you need to have in order to stay on track for this. All right, you can't have a 0.31 of a sale, so you need 3 a week. Let's just start with that. Because if we're doing 3 a week, we'll do more than 2,000 and we're still on pace. Okay, so how do you get 3 sales a week? Well, our agency closes 42% of the presentations we make. Not appointments booked, but how many presentations we make. So if we're closing 42%, I would take 3, that's 3 sales that are needed, and divide it by 0.42. So I need to make 8 presentations. It's actually 7.15 presentations, but again, there's no such thing as a 15% presentation, so just round up. I have to make no less than 8 presentations a week. If I'm making 8 presentations a week, every single week, for 12 weeks, I will be at 24,000. Take it to the bank. On a long enough time frame, the averages always win. Some weeks are different than others, but on a long enough time frame, you will come to the average, okay? Now, you have to be obsessed with making no less than 8 presentations a week. But like I said before, anytime you're shooting for less than 4,000, you're basically telling the person that's going to pay your check that you want to make less than that's willing to you, that you're capable of earning. If we're only doing that, we're only making a 13%, no, it's a 12% bonus. We're only making a 12% bonus. You are able to get 3 more basis points on that. Why limit what you can receive? So now let's take it to the next step. How do we make 4,000 ALP? Well, you just double everything because the initial was for 2,000. So if you want to write 4,000 ALP, you have to be absolutely committed to make no less than 14 presentations a week, 14 to 15 a week. Okay? But what happens along the way, like I said, something happens and we lose the focus on it. If you want it that bad, nothing will stop you when it comes to booking. Nothing will stop you from booking beyond booking night, which a lot of us are guilty of. A lot of us view that booking only happens on Mondays and Thursdays or Sundays and Wednesdays. Booking on those days is just the days that we happen to book together. But you can book at any point. Again, this is a 24/7 business. If you call someone only on Monday evenings and Thursday evenings, they get used to seeing this number calling them. Try a different time, okay? We can make money at any point in the day for this business. Money will never sleep in this industry. But the more you sleep on working, the more likely someone else will make the sale. You ever hear the term, take someone to lunch before they eat yours? Okay? You can move up, regardless of time frame, you can surpass anybody. It's just more so, what are you waiting for? If your goal is to have some sort of financial gain in life, what are you waiting for? Like, this is a platform that regardless of management, regardless of background, regardless of age, anyone can excel. Your agent number is independent of anything. What you do with that agent number will be on you. But how do you mentally focus yourself to move up as fast as possible? Because again, what you want, you may believe, oh, it takes 4 years. I promise you, one lady last week will make $23,000 just on her own personal production. If you made $23,000 in 1 week, just stop and think, what is possible? What can you do if you made an extra $23,000? Let's even break it down by 4. Say you only make an extra $6,000. Say you make $6,000 on Monday. How much does your life change initially? Does anyone's life not change somewhat if you make an extra $6,000? Now, how many of you actually believe you can do it? And that's probably, I'm glad some hands are going up, but a lot of us are probably limiting ourselves based upon if we were to review the effort. And so my goal is to get you out of old habits, get you out of bad habits, and realize if you're 2 and 2 today, when we break in 30 minutes, you can easily get yourself to 6 and 6 by the effort you take in booking your appointments. If you rated yourself a 4 out of 10 on your script review, when we break in 30 minutes or so, you can easily, with the right time and effort, get yourself to 10 out of 10. If your rebuttals to objections are 5 out of 10, when we break in 30 minutes, you got to be obsessed with controlling every single thing you can control. And then if you truly believe in that and you've gotten everything you can control to a 10, if you impact your effort, juice it up a little bit, and commit to no matter what happens, I'm going to make 14 presentations. The sales are a byproduct to the presentation. If you deliver a great presentation, you will make sales. If you deliver a bad presentation, you can still make sales. But again, it's winning those 50-50 ones. Not being upset that some people just won't give a shit, for a lack of a better word. Accepting it and kind of brushing it off. But if you're obsessed with how many presentations you're going to make, nothing will stop you from having success. Does that make sense? Okay. Now moving on into the presentation. Okay. This is where it truly becomes more mindset than anything else. Other things that you can master is your knowledge of products in general. Okay, a lot of us, we have the product and we trust in the system, but how much more are we doing in terms of knowing our product and other products? Okay, I mean, we deal with the basics. We deal with whole life and term. That's the most fundamentally sound insurance product you can buy. Anything else is a byproduct of the other two. I think it's smart to know that you know our product entirely. You've reviewed different rates at different ages, and you start to understand different health issues that will impact you along the way. But more so, you've got to put some emphasis on learning other products. Okay, because number one, you've got to learn how it works, but you also have to learn how other companies operate. And if you're not willing to learn that, you're going to constantly deal with issues when you're in the house when people bring it up. Okay? You should only have a problem or come up with a problem in a house where someone's talking about different products or how it works once. You should only discover something or consistently have something happen once. If you keep having the same issue and you can't overcome it, you're basically saying, I don't know this and I'm not willing to learn it. And I want to make sure that those 50-50 ones that could go either way don't go my way. So spend time in mastering the product, but also spend time in learning how much that product will help someone else. Like if you don't believe in this product, I think something's wrong with you, but you're also not willing to learn how much this product will help someone. I stop and think about how it affected me, but more so directly in this last month, a GA with me that works with some of us, she wrote up a lady on May 8th. Okay? She wrote up someone on May 8th. May 22nd, she was murdered. That's it. Accidental policy, $22,000 whole life, accidental, both paying out. The lady paid one premium. I think they did it in not even in the person's home. Okay? And you talk about it, that woman had 3 children. No matter how much money is sent to that person that's going to take care of those 3 kids, those kids' lives are forever changed. And it's not going to be the best life for them, but it's going to be better that something was left for them. Think about in your own scenarios. If you pass away or someone that's dependent on you or someone you're dependent on dies, what happens right now? Envision that. Whoever's the number one person that takes care of your life financially or someone that you take care of financially. If you go or they go, what happens in that life? How do those bills get paid? How do they maintain? A lot of us don't know. And you think about it, what's a person's most valuable asset? Their family, people say. Some people say their house, their car. They're all wrong. You think about it, people will say typically their home. In New Jersey, homes are only starting to grow value over the last 10 years, if value at all. Cars lose value the moment you purchase them. Cell phones, they cost us money every single month, and we typically purchase things off them that cost us more money. Does that make sense? So they're not our valuable assets. Your number one valuable asset is this. It's your income potential. And throughout life, as we get older, we make decisions that are bound by our income. Whether we buy homes or have bills or whatever, or we have children, or we have loved ones. They're dependent on your income. Once that valuable asset dies, which that valuable asset, we're dealing with a product that is guaranteed to affect every single person we come across with. There is nobody that's immortal that we will sit with. I promise you, no matter what, they will die. And there will be ramifications if they don't plan properly. So when you sit in a home, you have to mentally prepare to kill one of them. Not physically, but mentally. You have to understand that when you're building rapport, you're trying to figure out, number one, who they love. Number two, where they spend their money. Okay, everyone writing that down? Who they love, where they're spending their money, And that will tell you why they need this. Who they love, where they spend their money, and that will ultimately give you why they need this. And if you think about it, how many of us by show of hands have appointments today? Everybody, okay? Have you ever been on an appointment where you're like, man, I didn't try as hard as I should? Don't be ashamed, okay? Now imagine that appointment is your 5 o'clock today. Okay, and I'll use Kelvin just because his hand raised up and he locked eyes with me. All right? So do you have a 5 o'clock today?
I have 6 o'clock.
Okay, so Kelvin's 6 o'clock today. Now let's say you wake up this morning, all right, and a little fairy comes down and lands on your chest, okay? And they say, Kelvin, you're going to sit with a couple at 6 o'clock. That husband, 6 months from today, is going to die. You can't tell the wife, you can't tell the children. But I promise you, 6 months from today, that person that's the single income provider of that household will die. How much harder do you think you're going to try during that 6 o'clock as opposed to normal effort?
Try my best.
Okay. But a lot harder. But why?
Because like there's an emotional attachment.
Not only that, but you know for a fact the person's going to die in the short term.
Guaranteed.
It's a guarantee they're going to die in the short term. Okay? The difference is we're viewing it in the short term. Versus I promise you, yes, some will die in the short term, some will die in the long term, 100% will die. But our approach is different because we see it in the short term and we see a larger effect. What you don't realize is that my grandfather, who was the breadwinner for my family, took care of me. He took his policy out 40 years before he died. I'm grateful for every single cent that he did because it helped us maintain our life. And if that person didn't put that much value in it 40 years prior to his death, it may not be there. So it's how you approach it. A lot of us, because we're studying this and we work together for so long, we dehumanize the value of our product. You know, a lot of us don't realize that this is not just an income, this is a service. And if you treat it like an income, you will get income results. If you treat it like a service, you will be rewarded with profits not only once, but for the rest of their lifetime in renewals. Okay? You know, stop and think and realize that this is a family, and what happens to that family if they die? Okay, how many of us have children? Okay? Do any of you sit there and say, you know what, I hope my child has a worse life than me? Does anybody ever, I hope not. Does anybody ever say that? What do you think is going to happen if you pass away and that kid's still dependent on your income? Are they going to live a better, more fruitful life? Or is it going to be more challenging? That's what we're dealing with. That's what we're dealing with. When you put it into perspective of life and not a dollar, the way you approach each household is a lot more important. There's a lot more urgency in that moment, where if someone wants to think about it, every moment you think about it, you're costing yourself more money. And every single moment you're comfortable thinking about it, you're comfortable leaving your family at risk. Why do you have insurance on your house? Why do you have insurance on your car? Why do you have insurance on your cell phone? Because selfishly, you don't want to lose a dime. But if you don't want to have it on yourself, you're okay with your family struggling. That's the mentality that's happening because it's the most selfless product that someone's going to buy. They're never, ever going to benefit personally on this product. The only way they benefit is peace of mind, that knowing that every single person they care about is taken care of when they go. You know, there's 3 things important in a household: a roof over their head, food on the table, and something to make sure 1 and 2 are always covered. You know, it's try to find analogies to tie this together. You know, if you stop and think for a moment. Well, give me someone volunteer. Christina.
Yes.
Okay. Say you and your husband are sitting here, okay? And your husband's giving me flack. He doesn't want to buy it. Think of this scenario, okay? Christina, if I were to come to your house, I'm not the same person. I'm going to give you an ATM, okay? And this ATM will cost you nothing. There's no red tape. And once a week, it's going to spit out $500. Would you take it? Okay? Once a week, it's spitting out $500, $2,000 a month. Okay? You're going to take it. Now, all I'm saying is for $20 a week, you can buy the warranty package. That warranty package says, if this breaks, I can fix it at no cost, and it'll still spit it out. If you don't buy it, once it breaks, you never benefit from the ATM's money. Would you spend the $20 a week? Why? Okay. So why are you willing to buy the warranty package on the ATM when your husband is the real ATM here? Okay? Every single week he's making money. Once he goes, it's gone. Once she goes, it's gone. You know, you think about it, people will find ways to do it, but they don't think properly. And it's your way, it's on you to create avenues, not instruct, but create avenues for them to see what you're saying. You know, if they're both working, if both of them are working full-time jobs, and they're both dependent on each other's income, if he dies, Christina, can you just pick up an extra 40 hours to maintain the quality of life? Not many bills go down. The grocery bill may go down, and maybe you can cut back on a car, but other than that, the cost of the house or the cost of living is still the same. Cost of housing is still the same. That doesn't change. How are you going to afford it? And so you have to think like this, and you have to be able to pinpoint this. It may be uncomfortable, but it will lead you to the goal you want. Like I said, a lot of this is uncomfortable because you pretty much have to expose the least sexy topic to every single house with people you have never met before. But the better your passion is in this, the better your belief in this, the easier it all becomes. The problem is we just want to give the little effort. We want to find the low-hanging fruit. And the problem is the hungry people are going to your dinner table before you're even awake, and they're making sure these people see it. You know, you think about it, why time in and time out, so many of the same people writing so much more production than others? It's not because they have better leads, it's because they've mastered their presentation. They've mastered their objections and rebuttals. They've mastered, number one, their effort. And their passion and belief in the product is probably 10 times greater than yours. And they spent their time mastering it. There's only so many scenarios you can hear. But the more passionate you are in making an amazing presentation and educating those people, not trying to sell them, the better you'll be. And the more you're committed on doing more of those presentations a week, the more prosperous you'll become. And the more long-term you keep that system growing, the better your life and those that you live with and touch will be better. But what happens is you need a spark to get it going. There's no reason that anyone should shoot for less than 4,000 a week. That's the God's honest truth. Honestly, a lot should shoot for higher. Because if you're shooting for 4,000, you'll typically fall short. So if you want 4,000, you should shoot for 5. Okay? If you fall short on 5, are you that upset that you end up with 4,500? Probably not as upset as you are if you ended up with 500. Okay? But you have to honestly evaluate where you're at right now, and you have to be committed to being the best. Everything you do in this business has to be about doing your best and becoming the best. If you're not trying to win, you're not trying at all. Okay? Any questions on that so far? I don't want to go too much longer because I feel like I'll lose people's attention spans, but I do want to ask if people have questions, I want to make sure that I'm able to answer them, and then we'll try to do this once a month. So does anybody have any questions on anything we went over, or questions overall in terms of helps or tips?
Your first 2-3 weeks out, I mean, I know you've been in the business a little bit longer than I have. How did you overcome, like, the no-shows?
Sure.
You know, like, it's a little bit about the mindset.
Yeah.
that goes into
So her question, I'm just repeating it because I don't know if they heard you, was in my first few weeks with the company, how did I overcome the setbacks, like the no-shows and stuff like that? Again, I went into it understanding that 1 out of 3 people I sit with will buy. So I had to understand that 2 out of 3 times, things will not go my way. And again, I'm not going to say I handled it like, oh, darn it. Like, I was frustrated, but I had to find a way to mentally decompress from it. Because the more I hold on to the stuff that goes wrong in my life, the more likely other things will go wrong. And I'll do a disservice to the next person I sit with if I'm pissed off at my 5 o'clock for telling me to go, F off. So you got to be able to have a short-term memory. If you think about it, I mean, the largest sale I've ever had in one home was $302. Okay, that's roughly $3,600, a little bit more. In that one household, I made almost $1,800. Okay? So if 10 people said no to me for me to make $1,800, I'm cool with it. That's $180 a no. Okay? So it's like, I'm not trying to go out and sell every person that I get. I'm more reasonable than that. There's just no way everyone will buy. And when I'm new, I have to accept that I'm not going to be the best at it. Like people told me it takes about 250 to 500 presentations to be a master at this. I'm just trying to become a master. And when I came in, I didn't come in for the short-term results. I liked the results I had in the short term, but my goal was the long-term success. And in order to become a long-term success, I have to master this stuff. So if the first few presentations didn't go my way in my first 2 months, I wasn't upset because I was committed to becoming great at it. I also was committed to realizing that people that are great at it, they don't have a leg up on me. Some of them were less intelligent, some were more intelligent. Some were younger, some were older. Like there was no just cookie cutter type of person that was having success. At the end of the day, whoever was making the most presentations had the most success. You know, when I came in, I think my first 2 months, I was averaging like 20 to 25 presentations a week. And I remember a couple people that were tenured were like, oh man, I have such a higher closing ratio than you. And I was like kind of offended. And I'm like, man, do you get like a higher pay if you close more? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, then why don't you do more presentations? Like, there's no limit to what you can make. And then what happened is I realized people were doing less, and I naturally came down because I just saw what other people were doing. You know, so you got to check who you're sitting with. But if you're not able to overcome things, when I tell you stuff will go wrong, no matter how well you're trained or how poorly you're trained, there's going to be things that happen outside of your control. You know, and when people talk about, you know, when I told people I was going to do this career, I don't know how many people are my age or older, but any of you watched the WWF in the late 90s, I felt like I was Vince McMahon walking to the ring. Like people were just booing me and like, what the heck's wrong with you? Don't do this. But it was the results that I was after. I mean, I didn't think someone was going to, no matter what someone said, they weren't going to stop me because I saw people make $1 million a year. You know, my first agency meeting, we were fortunate enough to have some people from another agency come in. And these two guys that were a year or two older than me had just made $900,000 each. And I was like, that's great, you know? And they didn't have anything more advantage than us. I mean, we have more leads probably, and they were in a different area, but they did it. So all it took was to see that they did it, and then fortunately was able to develop a relationship, and I learned from the stuff that they did, and it was just being great at this, now taking on more. I may not have been prepared to take on more, but I'll figure it out along the way. Okay, now to be big, you have to bring in a lot of people. Well, bringing in a lot of people is one thing, but you got to make sure they do well. So how can I ensure these people do well if I'm only average at what I'm doing? I need to be great at the things I can control. The better my systems are, the more I can handle. And then as I move up, there's going to be more things I don't know. I got to solidify that foundation, and then I could take on more. So that's where it comes down to what I said in the beginning is the better you are with a system, you can always handle more. If you don't have a good system and you're constantly behind, you have to get organized, not only physically, but mentally. If you're a disaster mentally, it will show. But the more systems and disciplines you have, the faster you will grow, because I wasn't in this for the short-term sales, okay? So when things went wrong, I still saw those two guys that made $960 something thousand. And they were only 7 hours away in Pittsburgh, you know? So it's like, all right, things went wrong, I'm still going there. My goal was to get there, okay? So, you know, if you're looking at it like, oh, in the short term I'm going bad, like you're already trying to overcome doubt. Like commit to it and just commit to being great. Like if you, like I said, if you want it that bad, there's gonna be nothing that stops you. There's nothing that stops you. And if you can't find a way to commit consistently, put it in front of yourself. Like literally just have it when you're frustrated, find a funny photo and put it in your drop-down rear view mirror and just look at it and say, all right, shit's gonna get better. It's like that little cat, like hang in there. Because again, like there's no reason that people constantly make sales day in and day out that aren't better than you. There's no reason that people constantly become millionaires in this industry. That means you can't. It's just the difference is how much they ran with that opportunity to get it. Okay, cool? Any other questions? All right, so let's close out. Thank you guys for coming.